Welcome to the Happy Black Woman Podcast, where we're on a mission to empower women to transform their lives through personal development and entrepreneurship. We bring you all the information, inspiration, and motivation you need to create a life of happiness, success, and freedom. Now, please welcome your host, the happy Black woman herself, Rosetta Thurman.
All right, welcome to this episode of the Happy Black Woman Podcast. I am so excited to introduce you to our next guest. And I am sure that many of you have heard about her. Her name is Tara Jefferson, and she is the founder and creator of theyoungmommylife.com. It was created in 2008, and it's been featured in a bunch of media outlets all around the world, including Essence, Ebony, and BlackAmericaWeb.com. And it's really a realistic portrayal of young motherhood and all that it entails. The Young Mommy Life is a global community for empowering young mothers to live their fullest lives. And I am just so excited and pleased to introduce you to Tara today. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you for having me.
It's so exciting to really see someone online and kind of get little snippets of what you're doing, but now being able to learn more about your story and share it with my listeners. So I'm excited that you said yes to joining us. So let's dive in with our conversation today and just have you share in your own words, what is your mission? So just tell us a little bit about the work you do with Young Mommy Life.
Sure. I started the site, as you said, in 2008. At the time, I was a 22-year-old new mother. I had my 1-year-old daughter at the time. I was pregnant with my second child. And so I was just a little bit overwhelmed, might be the best word for it. But I was also, looking for answers, and I was looking for a community. I felt very lonely. I was the only one in my circle of friends who had children at that time. And I was the only one who was married, who had children, the only one who had graduated college. I was just feel like I was 10, 15 years ahead of all of my other friends. And so I basically turned online to find that community and to try to build what I was lacking at that point. So I started the Young Mommy Life for that community, for myself and for other young mothers who found themselves kind of in the same situation where they didn't really have a lot of people to talk to. Maybe, their friends weren't quite there yet, or, their mom, was a little bit older and didn't quite want to talk to her. And so since then, I've really tried, and everything that I post to the site, everything that I post to our social media profiles, the mission is really to foster that sense of community and also to empower these women because, when you have a child at a younger age, you have a child at, 19, 20 years old, your focus tends to become, how can I be a great parent? How can I improve, whatever it is that my kid needs? And you don't spend as much time on yourself. And your 20s are that really transformational decade where, you're supposed to learn about yourself and learn about what it is that you want to do in life and explore and do things. And when you're parenting during that decade, you're parenting, through your late teens and 20s, some of that can take a back seat. And so really through the site, we're trying to make sure that women have the space to say, what it is that they feel, to find, new friends and make those connections, but then also learn how to advocate for yourself, how to take care of yourself in spite of any other roles that you have, and really just learn how to live your life fully as a mother and as a woman.
Mm-hmm. Awesome mission. I mean, I had a young mom myself. My mom had me when she was 16, and so I always tell people, I think God gave me the greatest gift, which I didn't see as a gift when I was a kid. I was like, man, my mom is like so young, and everybody is like, your mom is like your sister. But now I see it as a gift because, not only did God give me a mom, he gave me a best friend. So I love that you have taken that on as your mission to really support other young moms. Now tell me, how old were you when you started your site? I mean, it looks like you started as a blog and there's all sorts of topics that appeal to young moms. How old were you when you actually launched the site?
I was pregnant with my son, so I was 22 at that time. I'd been parenting for almost 2 years prior to that. A lot of my early readers were around the same age, a little bit younger than I was. Mm-hmm. And I really found it important, even though I wasn't a teen parent. I was 20 when I had my daughter, my first child. But even though I wasn't a teen parent, I found that it was very important for me to try to include teen parents in everything that I was doing. One of the reasons why I didn't name the site 20-something mom, and instead I went for young mommy to make sure that I could include the teen moms, that they would feel comfortable. Because I know it's a difficult road for them, and I know a lot of messages that they receive from society aren't very welcoming or affirming, and I wanted my site to be a place where they could feel that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So it looks like, you've got this blog, you've got these topics that you're sharing about. What are some of the topics that you write about to support young moms?
Recently, I have been on a very heavy self-care kick because I get a lot of emails through the site, a lot of messages on Facebook, a lot of direct messages on Twitter and Instagram. And a lot of moms are just kind of overwhelmed and run down. And they, like I said, a lot of times younger moms in particular parent like they have something to prove. So, they don't go out and party, or they don't go out, they don't have a babysitter. They're like, I can take care of my own kid and I don't need, help, or I don't need this. I'm going to prove to you that I can be a great parent. And I see that with a lot of teen moms that I talk to. So they're kind of parenting to prove something to the naysayers. But what happens is when you don't take those breaks and when you don't take time for yourself, you don't have any time away from your kid at all, that can run you down and kind of make you, you're depleted at that point. So I've really been, over this whole entire course of this year, I've really been pressing self-care and taking care of yourself. And that's not just reading a magazine and painting your toenails, but, going to the doctor. If you're overwhelmed, should you reach out to a therapist? And so those types of issues are what we've been really focusing on for 2015, because I really want anybody who comes to my site to walk away with giving themselves permission to really make sure that they're at the top of their own priority list.
Wonderful. I love that. What I also love about your journey, your story, is that your path began with just sharing what you knew and what you wanted to put out there in the world for young moms. Now, what made you decide to turn that into a business?
Well, it's funny. When I started, I was kind of, if you look at my earliest posts from 2008, I try not to go back that far in my archives. I don't want to read that, because most of my early posts, it was just kind of like random and venting and just, at the time it was just something that I was doing, but I never thought that it would be a business, or I never thought that I could make money from the site. But as the years, maybe 2 years into blogging, I started writing for other websites and other blogs and getting my name out there and getting paid for it. And, I kind of thought to myself, well, how do they have money to pay me and their bloggers? Maybe there's something that I could be doing to, make money from this and to really build this as a business. It took me a really long time for me to understand, okay, well, how is this going to be a business? And, most of my readers and everything, they are younger mothers. So, they may not have a lot of disposable income. How can I make this a business? And I started, as most bloggers do, I started with sponsored posts. So I might work with a brand to, talk about their new product or something that they're launching now. I might do advertising in the sidebar, things like that. As time went on and I started to make more money online, I also started to show some of the young mothers on my site how they too could make money online. So I've hosted blogging webinars over the past maybe 3 years or so. I do it a few times a year so that they can, launch their own sites and figure out how they can make income from home, and they can have a little extra money in their pocket.
Wonderful. So, you didn't envision that it would be a business, but now that it is, what does that look like for you? Tell us about your typical day.
Yeah. Well, my typical day has really changed over the years, because I used to be just a really, I work for myself from home, and I always say I have a very difficult boss. My boss is very demanding. And I when I first started, I used to work in the nonprofit world, and that was my day job. And then I'd come home at night and write for the blog. When I got laid off in 2000, at the end of 2010, instead of going out to get another nonprofit job, I decided to try to do this blogging, writing thing full time. And now here it is almost 5 years later, and I've been able to do so.
Well, just to give people some context for, what it looks like for you working from home. So how old are your children now, and where are they while you're working?
Well, I have how old are they? 8 years old and a 6-year-old. So they're both in school most of the day, 6 hours. And so, when I first started, they were at home with me. And so that was very difficult because I wasn't making enough to send them to preschool or daycare or anything. So that was very difficult. I definitely cried tears of joy when they both got into school full time. That was amazing. So now that they're in school full time, 5 days a week, which is, oh my goodness, such a blessing. Most of my days are in my home office. I try to get out a couple times a week to go to, the coffee shop or Panera or someplace just because I find I can be a little bit more productive when I'm not staring at laundry or looking at dirty dishes or thinking about what's for dinner. And so I'm usually, writing content, emailing with potential guest bloggers, creating graphics for my site. I'm still kind of a one-woman shop, so I'm doing a little bit of everything now. Working on events that I have coming up, webinars. Every day is a little bit different, and I think that's what I love the most about it.
Wonderful. I mean, this is what so many of our women in our Happy Black Woman community are working on, how to build an online business that they can run from home so they can have freedom. And it is definitely a path to freedom, being able to leverage what you know, what you're passionate about. I'm curious, what does freedom look like to you? I mean, you're working from home and you can make your own schedule. Is that something you thought about as a goal when you were starting out wanting to do this full time, or was it really, about being able to be there anytime for your kids? What did that freedom look like for you?
When I had my daughter, I was a junior in college, and I was really upset with myself because I felt like, oh man, at the time I didn't have a real job. I had an on-campus job making $100 a month maybe. I didn't have health insurance. It just wasn't a good situation. And so I kind of made a promise to myself then. I said, by the time my daughter is in kindergarten, I want to be able to control my schedule so that I'm there for field trips and doctor's appointments and all that, because I felt like I owed that to her because we got off to such a rocky start. So that's what I had been working toward. For the time she got to kindergarten, that's what we would be doing. I would be working from home. And so I ended up getting laid off the year before she went to kindergarten. And I said, okay, well, this is a little bit earlier than I had planned, but I'm going to try to, make it happen this time. I'm going to work hard and put in the time, and I'm going to make this work because I made a promise to myself that this would be what it is. And it is freedom. And I truly enjoy, in the mornings that I set the schedule. So if I want to start working at 8, I start working at 8. If I want to start working at 10 o'clock after I usually watch an episode of The Golden Girls before I start working. That is my schedule, and I don't have a boss or anybody tell me, what are you doing? You can't watch Golden Girls at 9 a.m. And so just that kind of simple thing I try to take advantage of, because I do, set my own hours, and I do, I am able to go to chaperone field trips. I am able to go to the grocery store at 11 or be the first person in line at Chipotle at 11 when they open. And so, that type of flexibility and freedom is really important to me. And that also means, I am working, on Sunday evenings, or I'm working, on a Friday night sometimes, but that's all worth it. Definitely.
Totally. Well, I love that you set that goal. I mean, it's powerful to have a reason and a purpose for what you're doing, and the goal of being home with your daughter by the time, having this freedom by the time your daughter was in kindergarten. I mean, it sounds like it was something that helped push you forward. So is there anything else that you can share with us of how you have set goals that have helped you be productive? Because being at home, you can watch Golden Girls all day if you want, really. I mean, no one's going to stop you. So are there any other strategies you use for goal setting and productivity?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I had done, and I don't do it anymore, but I just needed to do it to kind of get on track, is I had used a time tracker app, and I just used like a really simple free one online. I think I downloaded it to my computer or something. And for 1 week, I really kind of, set it whenever I was doing tasks, and I really needed to see how much of my time was spent on Facebook, or how much of my time was spent in my inbox, or how much, how long did it take me to edit something. And I found that because I was multitasking a lot, and because I was, kind of flitting from screen to screen and doing all that a lot of tasks took me a lot longer than I had, than I thought. I said, it takes me 20 minutes to edit a blog post, when really it would take me, 45, because I'm trying to find images and, do all that stuff. And so really when I took a look at my workflow and took a look at areas where I could improve, things got a lot smoother, got a lot easier, because I could, kind of catch myself like, oh, no, you can't check Facebook yet because you didn't, finish whatever project it is that you were working on. And so really, taking the time weekly on Sunday nights is kind of my get ready for the week. And on Sunday nights, I really sit down, I think about all the things that I have to accomplish in the next 5 days and what does that look like. And some nights I'm going to have to order pizza because I'm going to be busy. Or, looking at who do I need to get back to, that kind of thing. So I really try to make sure that on a weekly basis, I'm reviewing my goals, looking at what worked, what didn't work the previous week, what worked, what can I bring to the upcoming week, and really just trying to make sure that I know where I am in my business and, what goals it is that I'm reaching toward.
I love that. In our Happy Black Woman community, I always say you have to look at what you're doing every week. Otherwise, it can really get away from you, the time. So I love that you use a time tracker app. Was there a specific one or a website you can give us that we can share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think it was just like timetracker.co, I think, if I'm not mistaken. It's a very simple app. You just kind of go in. It gives you kind of at the end of the week, it'll give you kind of like a spreadsheet of how you spent your time. And you can kind of look at it and cringe, maybe like I did the first time I used it. But it was very beneficial to me, and it was free. So that's the best kind of tool.
Oh, I love it. And we will find the URL and put that in the show notes for everybody who's trying to look on their computer right now. So great. Started out this blog in 2008, and I'm having flashbacks myself because I started blogging back in 2007. And so much has happened over these years. And now I think I'm in the wonderful position of being able to look ahead, because we now have this data from all these years of what it's like to go through a year in your blog and your business and what is possible. So, over in Happy Black Woman, we're looking at what's going to happen in the next 5 years, and it's incredible and scary and exciting. Where do you see yourself in your business in the next 5 years? Have you been looking ahead in that same way?
It's very scary because everything, like you said, it changes so rapidly, and just thinking about technology in itself, like my kids, think every computer has a touch screen, like just the way that technology has moved forward. I have no clue what's going to be big or popular, or what types of technology we'll be using in 5 years. But I do know what my passions are, what my strengths are, where I think I can be most useful to people. And I think that knowing that will be beneficial to me no matter what medium it is that I'm using. So in the next 5 years, I am, and kind of this year in particular, I am kind of laying the groundwork for taking the Young Mommy Life, a quote-unquote blog, to a true community that exists both offline and on. And I've hosted a few events offline, and I'm really looking forward to continuing that momentum and continuing to bring women together to make sure that they, feel like they're part of a tribe, that they are supported in every stage of their motherhood and their womanhood. And I'm really looking forward to really bringing women together offline, because I think I've done, over the past 7 years, if I do say so myself, an amazing job of bringing women together from all over the globe And I think it's time in the next 5 years, we're going to be ramping up to really make sure that these women, know what other readers are in their community or what other women are nearby that can really help support them as they grow.
Great. So it sounds like you're going to be doing more events and building community. I mean, it's definitely the path that we're taking with Happy Black Woman, because women love to get together. They love to come together. Mm-hmm. And so what are some of the events you've had in the past, and what are you looking to host in the future in terms of that live in-person experience?
Well, my first few events have really kind of been geared toward the younger population. I kind of include everybody that's in the Young Mommy Life community. Well, my definition of a young mom is anybody who had their first child before 25. And so that's, from 13, to 25, which is everybody in there. But that doesn't mean that anybody above 25 isn't part of the community. So the first couple of events that I've done, I hosted the Young Mom Summit last year at Kent State University, where we kind of brought together 50 young mothers for a one-day event on finances, on career, on how to balance school with family, how to deal with stress, and how to manage your stress better. And I found that was a transformative experience for me, because that was the first event that I had hosted on that type of scale. And to see the women come together and to see the attendees exchange information, that was amazing. At the summit, one thing that really stood out to me, that really kind of fortified my decisions to do these events, was the first attendee that showed up at the summit was a 15-year-old girl, and she was pregnant with triplets. She was the first one there. She was there bright and early. She was ready to meet women and build her support network. As a result of her coming to the summit, she got connected with a Teen Mom parenting group. She's been going regularly to their monthly meetings, and she has support that I think she wouldn't have had she not decided to come to that event. So that's like the biggest success story, the biggest thing that really kind of keeps me going forward, is knowing that there can be outcomes like that really, help women move forward.
Oh, I love it. I mean, those are the moments in your business that I say that make it all worth it. There are those nights where you're writing the blog post and you're hoping that it reaches the right people. You're hoping that it hits the right people, and you're planning this event, and you're hoping the right people show up, and then they do, and it's magical. So this is exciting. I'm very excited that more communities and tribes are popping up that women can be a part of, because it's so powerful. I love that we've been able to share your story and your path and some of your successes, and looking in the future to your future successes. And I really want to take these last few moments we have to share with our listeners just some inspiration and advice for them. So let's just start with, what inspires you? What or who inspires you as you go through this path that we both know is scary and exciting? What inspires you to keep going?
Yeah. Well, I always say that I come from a long line of women who were go-getters in their time. I look at my, grandmother who, lived in the South in the 1940s, and how she managed to, get a college degree and come up north and, start a family here. I look at my mother who in her, mid-30s decided to switch careers and become a nurse. And now she's been doing that and been taking care of people for 20 years. I look at some of the women in my family who have, overcome challenges, who have done things that scared them, and they not only survived it, but they thrived in the process. And so, those women, my mother, my grandmother, my aunts, my friends, I am just surrounded by possibility and surrounded by great women. And I really draw my strength from them, and they are my biggest supporters. So it's not, it's easy to just kind of bask in their greatness, because they're here for me and, they support me.
I mean, so you've got the women around you who support you and inspire you and remind you of who you are. I mean, that's totally who my mom is for me. She was at our last event. Well, she was at our last two events. And it's like, you know what, Mom, you don't have to say anything. Just sit there and be there. And I will be fine. What makes you happy, Tara?
Well, and it's interesting that you asked me that, because I think for a long time I couldn't answer that question because I wasn't focused on myself. I was just, like I said earlier, I was just, okay, I got to feed the kids and I got to make sure the kids have clothes and I wasn't doing a lot of self-reflection on what does make me happy, what gives me joy. And this year in particular, 2015, I've really been focused on that question. So what makes me happy is the chance to create art. I never really realized that. But creating art and consuming art in different ways, which is something that I share with my daughter. And then also really being able to pursue my passions fully. That is really what makes me happy. When I'm able to set a goal and, draw out a game plan for how I'm going to do this and, figure out, what steps I need to take to get there. And when I execute them, I mean, it's the sweetest feeling. So really being able to just pursue my passions and just really create the life that I've kind of envisioned for myself, which I didn't, for a long time, I didn't think it was possible. But really now when I've kind of tapped into, who I am and what my strengths are, and now when I can set those goals and execute them, I'm just on cloud nine.
I know the feeling. So tell us, do you have a favorite book or blog or website that, is like you keep coming back to it, you reread it to continue to get inspired? What do you read?
Yeah. Well, I read a little bit of everything. I try to consume, as much as I can, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, whatever. I just cannot be satisfied. I just have to keep reading. But I think one of the books that really kind of inspired me on this journey, the book called Get Yours. It's by Amy Du Bois Barnett. She used to be the editor-in-chief of Ebony. I think that was one of her more recent big positions. And that book came out, I think, right after I had my daughter. And so I got that book, and it's basically about, how to get what you want out of life. And I read that as a young 20-something. And it was kind of the first time that anybody ever said, like, hey, you don't have to live a reactionary life, or you don't have to just kind of deal with what life throws at you. You can, be proactive, and you can kind of say, I would like to travel. And then, set aside money every paycheck. And then once you have enough, you can go. So it was kind of like the first time that I was kind of exposed to the idea that I could be happier and I could be, have that freedom that I craved. And it wasn't just a pipe dream, that it could actually be reality. It took me probably like 5 more years before I really started to, believe it and put those things into practice. But that was the spark, I think, for me, definitely.
Great. We'll add this to our Happy Black Woman book list for sure. And, if you could think of a personal mantra, one of the things that I teach in our 31-day reset work is about having a personal mantra, a saying or a motto or a quote or a truth that you live by. And I switch mine up every year. Do you have something like that you live by for yourself?
I do. And like you said, I switch mine up very frequently. But this year, my personal mantra is I choose not to shrink myself. What that does for me is that it really reminds me that I don't have to choose lesser. I don't have to think lesser of myself. I have a right to, my voice, my opinions, my dreams, my goals, even if they're big and they scare me and other people. I choose not to shrink myself, and I choose to be full-bodied in everything that I'm trying to accomplish. I try to recognize that, I'm human. Yes, I have flaws, but I'm worthy and I'm enough. And I choose not to shrink myself.
I love that. It is amazing. This is, it's an affirmation and a mantra all in one. And I know that our listeners will love it and write it down and use it for their own empowerment. So last but not least, I love sharing advice with our community about how to move forward. So what would be the number one tip you would give to women who are thinking about starting a business, doing what they love? What would you say would be your number one piece of advice?
I think my number one piece of advice would be that you need to fortify yourself. You need to make sure, like I did went through a season where I was really just searching for support. So, I told my husband, what my fears were and how I would need his help as I kind of embarked on this journey. I kind of let my parents help me. If they would offer to watch the kids, I would, say, okay, you can watch the kids and I can catch up on rest or whatever it is that I needed. I really got rid of or kind of let go of friendships that, maybe weren't serving me in the best way, and people who, I kind of have friends that are really kind of jealous and not quite the positive influences that you need in that time of your life when you're starting a business. And I really just tried to kind of build cushion around myself so that, if I was tired or if I was kind of overwhelmed, that I had those supports in place already, that I didn't have to kind of scramble for a life jacket when I was already drowning, that I would have, those supports in place that could help me through some of the difficult times, because they will come, and you want to be prepared for, those days when you're just exhausted or you hit a mental block. But I think that's my biggest piece of advice is to, fortify yourself, build your support before you need it.
Great advice. Great advice. All about asking for help and accepting help and being very aware of the people and the support you need around you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for sharing your story and your path and the road that you're still walking, because I think a lot of people look at what we're all doing and saying, wow, she's made it. But the journey continues on and on and on. So thank you for sharing your journey with us. And I would love to have our listeners keep in touch with you. So how can we find out more about you and the Young Mommy Life and the projects you're working on for the coming year?
Well, you can find me at theyoungmommylife.com. And on the site, they have all of my social media buttons. But I'm really into Instagram these days. So on Instagram, I'm just Tara Jefferson. If anybody who is listening to the podcast has a need for a rejuvenating weekend, this September, I've dubbed it Self-Care September. So all month long, we are going to be doing challenges on self-care, really trying to get you to carve out time to make sure that you are a priority in your life. And the culmination of that is going to be our self-care retreat. That's going to be in Alexandria, Virginia, September 18th through the 20th. And you can get more information on the retreat at ymlretreat.eventbrite.com. And you can get all your questions answered there, and you can look at agenda and schedule items. It's going to be an amazing event, and I really encourage any woman who needs time away from maybe the family or business or whatever it is to really, invest in yourself and try to make sure that you have the space to explore what you need to explore and be centered and calm and happy.
I love it. I mean, it sounds incredible, and we'll be sure to put the link in our show notes for all of our ladies from the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. I know we have a lot of ladies there, so stay in touch with Tara on Instagram and with her upcoming retreat and everything going on at theyoungmommylife.com. Thank you again, Tara, for taking the time to share, and all the best with everything that you're doing at Young Mommy Life.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this podcast, and I love the happy Black woman. So this is perfect.
Thank you so much. And everybody, stay tuned for our next episode of the Happy Black Woman podcast, where we'll be sharing more inspiration and stories for how you can create a life of happiness, success, and freedom. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Happy Black Woman podcast. If you want all the show notes from today's episode, go to happyblackwomanpodcast.com. Plus, we'll send you a copy of Rosetta's free life mapping workbook. We look forward to empowering you next time, and until then, do something this week that makes you happy.